And to me, how the horse industry benefits from this human-animal bond is similar to other industries and how we sell our animals based on that bond. And when you look at the therapy situations, and I'll talk about it a little later, some of the therapy situations are taking some of the animals that are unwanted in our industries and using them to help people. So you can take, those two things together are often magic. But there's no doubt about it that the American Youth Horse Council that I used to run, kids plus horses equals magic is one of their sayings. And I mean, it's clearly true when you see all the different things we can learn from horses. And when you look back at that very touching video, but a clear message from the American Quarter Horse Association that our horses are great, and a very subtle message from Farnham, which sells horse products, that they sponsor this, so buy their product. So, kind of a win-win situation when you look at how the industry can work together and utilize the benefits of horses in that bond in different ways. Unfortunately, I'm a little more familiar with the challenges to the industry. The human-animal bond isn't a bad thing if it's completely understood, but it can really, a lot of times, get in the way of some of the things that we need to do in the horse industry and that what the general public understands about horses when they only see the movie Secretariat and they see great videos like that and they don't understand everything that surrounds horses and exactly how they are. And of course, I'm always going to talk about the unwanted horse debate, which we've been in the middle of, and there's a lot of really important lessons to be learned. Americans love horses. I mean, there's no doubt about it. How many people do you talk to that say, well, I hate horses? It just doesn't happen. The debate over horses as livestock versus companion animals, and that's been within the horse industry a challenge that we've had to overcome in educating people within our industry on how important it is to keep horses classified as livestock for a number of different reasons, including taxes, zoning, being under the purview of the USDA for disease control purposes, those types of things. That was the beginning of the debate on the unwanted horses, how horses are classified. Definitely the debate of processing for horses for human consumption. After seeing that video, how many in this room want to see a horse sold for processing for being eaten overseas? Not very many. And that's it's just an emotional debate, and one that when you go to your legislator and you have to talk to them about the realities of the horse industry versus how his constituents feel about horses as, their pets and as therapy animals and police horses and those types of things, it makes the debate even harder. The aggressive campaign by animal rights activist groups, again, we could talk about that all day, but they utilize how people feel about their personal animal and try and use it against some of the things that may be necessary for the overall health of not only the horse herd in the U.S., but the individual animal. I think the urbanization, to me, especially dealing with the sport of rodeo, has been definitely a challenge because we're so far removed from the ranch, so far removed from understanding where our food comes from, how actual workhorses live, and people view cows, sheep, everything as pets anymore. They don't see them as labor or a food source. And they definitely lack the knowledge of how to take care of a cow, a horse, or any type. They see movies, cartoon movies, and movies and television when they talk about horses, and they think that's real life. So I'm going to go over a few of the lessons I think that can be learned from the unwanted horse situation. I'm not going to go into exactly what's going on with that right now, but maybe lessons that might be useful to everyone in this room, what we've learned. Of course, going back to we're generations from the farm and ranch. Animals have moved from utility, which made them worthwhile and gave them a worth, to companions and family members. And what I see as the main issue with that and what has happened in the horse industry is whether you or not you agree with the processing of horses for human consumption, they always had a bottom value. And in the horse industry, that's not the case anymore. And when horses are actually a liability and they don't at least have some sort of bottom value, sometimes you'll see their care go down and a lot of abuse and neglect. people's perception is their reality. And how they see our industries and how they see what they do, what we do, and that's all they have to go by. And so many kids, all they know about dog shows or rodeos is some of the stuff they've seen on YouTube. So it's our job to get more of the real reality out there and try and change their perception. The vision of people in general public that don't have animals, especially horses or large animals, they think of animal welfare as kind of related to how their welfare is. 40% of people in a poll were willing to pay 10% more for food if the animal's welfare was improved. And that's a pretty powerful statement, and I think a lot of the organic movements and those types of things show that people are definitely willing to pay more. They want to protect animal welfare, but they're really not sure what that means. Does that mean what PETA says? Does that mean what we say? Is there something in the middle? They're not really sure because they're getting mixed messages from a lot of different places. How about the science? And a lot of people within the rodeo industry want to say, well, just show them your documented surveys that we don't injure very many animals and everything will be fine. Well, that's a part of it, absolutely. What we do and with the science is very, very important. But people's reality is also important. And sometimes they can just completely throw away science if they've seen something that disturbs them. So it's our job, again, to monitor within our industries to make sure that we have the perception, the reality, and the science all lined up. People view animal welfare as a moral issue, not a scientific one. Animal welfare decisions need to be based with both science and society in mind. And that's where you're talking about the legislators. That's the line they're trying to walk, is we've got to give them enough science to give them cover, and we've got to give them enough information that we're really doing what's best for our animals and to counter some of the other arguments that come along. Science informs decisions, but people make them. And if you've got someone in Congress whose wife, definitely doesn't like the processing of horses for human consumption, it doesn't really matter what I say. It doesn't really matter the welfare of horses. He's going to do what his wife tells him. And she's saying, introduce this bill, get it through. We have to think about where people are coming from, what their experiences are, and recognize that they don't match our own. And I don't remember who I was talking to last night. How'd you get into this rodeo business? Did you grow up on a ranch? No, I didn't. As I told you, my sister won a pony in a coloring contest. No one in my family had ever been involved in it. And that helps me understand where the general public's coming from when they see some of the propaganda from the rodeo industry, and how I can try and talk with my own relatives and people in the realm of that the general public is, and say, here's what we're doing to care for the animals. Here's why what the extremists are saying isn't true. Except that there is a societal component, and I tell our folks, we're not always going to be able to do things the way they've done it in the past. And people's different perspectives are valid. Emotion and misinformation will override science, in fact. How many of you have seen that? Some hearings, maybe, in certain cities. Just the fact that it was acceptable 40 years ago isn't going to make it acceptable today. And, this room is really easy. When I'm in a room full of cowboys, and trying to tell them, hey, you guys are going to have to change the way you're thinking, it's harder. But there's no doubt about it that if we don't say we have to make valid what the public is saying, then we're done. Absolutely. We can either be seen as providing leadership or being an impediment to humane animal care. Absolutely. If legislators look at me as defending rodeo and never looking at any of the complaints that come in, or if they see, the dog folks just, they think of you as just perpetuating breeding and not trying to do something, about overpopulation, which I know isn't the case, then that's what they're thinking, and they have to believe that we really are trying to do things to get ahead of the issue. We need to know the facts within our industry, and that's what's so important about these types of conferences. We can learn about other people's industries and be educated. We have to organize like we're doing here, and we have to collaborate. And the fact that we can't get more people to conferences like this within the animal industry is very disconcerting. but at least we have this small core group that can go out and tell people how important it is. And no one in this room knows this, has any doubt about the power of public opinion and the ballot initiative process, and why it's important for us to get in front of the issues before these ballot initiatives come down the line. And it's what I tell our people in California. There's never been a ballot initiative regarding animals in California that hasn't passed. They can just about introduce whatever they want there. So then you're trying to convince the whole population of the state of California. So I will do a little commercial. I'm about ready to wrap up, but I do want to show you what the PRCA is doing so you can kind of see a little bit about our proactive efforts. See if I can get my video to run here. You can see maybe I won't. Oh, there it is.
As the sport of rodeo developed, so have the standards for competition and the guidelines regarding the livestock. The Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association has created one of the most comprehensive livestock welfare programs in the nation. 60 rules governing the care and handling of the livestock at PRCA-sanctioned events. And those 60 rules cover everything, from the equipment used to the weight of the animals. PRCA officials must always be on hand to enforce the rules while officiating the competition.
In today's times, everyone is critically aware of animal welfare, and those of us that have spent our entire professional careers giving care to these animals would have it no other way but to make sure that these animals have the absolute best care that they can get. I spent 26 years of my life devoted to taking care of horses, and I have absolutely no qualms or concerns about the way these animals are cared for, either as a rough stock or in the professional cowboys' own horses.
I think that the way in which the Cowboys treat the animals is every bit as important as they're cared for before and after the event. And I know that the PRCA takes precautions to make sure that the Cowboys know that they will be reprimanded, or there is a punishment in place or consequences in place for mishandling the animals.
The PRCA has wonderful bylaws. It's written by us, the rodeo producers, the Cowboys, the rodeo committees. We put these bylaws in place to protect these animals ourselves. They're our livelihood, and we love them. They're part of the team. They're your team. You go to the function with your team. You look after your team. And I think their bylaws are very fair. Their bylaws are very stringent, very strict, but they're put in place by us. We have very much input into it, and we're very careful about our animals.
So that's one section of a video that we've done, and we tried to mix the science with the veterinary professionals that are actually on site at our rodeos with the actual animal owners. And if you go into some of the other sections, we have interviews with cowboys that talk about the livestock that they ride, and even though they're rough stock riders, the relationship that they have with the horses. So it's important. What we do here is all proactive. We don't restate any negative things about rodeo. We try and answer people's questions in a positive manner and add in some science or surveys that show the rate of injury being very low and that type of thing. How do we get to the future? And some of you that have seen me talk before, I've talked some about the future that we see in rodeo. And again, up in the left-hand corner, you'll see 3 horses, and you probably can't see them very well there. They're pretty close to looking alike, and that's because they're clones. And again, the future is here. I would have never thought within my tenure at the PRCA that we'd have to try and find a policy relating to cloning horses within our industry. Within the bucking horses, their genes are very valuable, and most of the horses that we have as performance horses in the bucking events are geldings. So you're not going to perpetuate those genes. So this is go left, go straight, and go right, and they are clones of a horse named Go Wild. And they're going to be old enough to buck pretty soon. Mostly they're being bred they're being cloned specifically to breed, but these horses are going to be bucking pretty soon, and we're going to have to decide, is that against our principles? Is it fair? We just don't know. But that's part of the future, part of the things that before someone actually brings a clone to a rodeo, we have to decide. Going back to some of the lessons and what we can all do as industries, we have to be willing to ask the questions within our industries, are we doing things right? And I talk to folks within the rodeo industry all the time, not allowing emotions, and it's very difficult, like I talked about, for these cowboys to be accused of the things they're being accused of and not get very angry and lash out. And that's exactly what the opposition wants us to do. We can't cloud our judgment in how we're handling things at these very emotional hearings and those types of things with our emotions, because I believe in the sport of rodeo, but I believe it's my job to maintain a clear focus of what's going on, try and take the emotions out of it, even when they call me the princess of the rodeo mafia or they come to my home. I don't get mad, I get even. So that's a really important lesson. Even though this is it's our business and they're attacking it, when we react emotionally, we play right into what they want us to do. Make all of our decisions based on what's best for the animals. And that's what we've put at the top of our list at the PRCA, and so important, because you could focus everything on public relations, on media interviews, and we do have injuries in the arena. And we focus a lot of our time and effort on training our people on how to handle those injuries. And a part of that training is you handle it with your veterinarian, what's best for the animal. The crowd's going to be there a while, and it is a public performance, but you can always answer your critics, whether it be your fans, legislators, anybody. If you answer them with, we made our decisions based on what was best for the animal, you're always going to come out ahead. You have to be willing to make changes when they're needed, and not make those changes based on if you think that that's going to make the opposition happy. I don't allow our people to run a rule through that they think might get the opposition off of our back for a year, because I guarantee it's going to backfire you. You go back to passing your rules and policies based on what's best for the animals. Focus on our issue, and I talk about that all the time, and when I give seminars to our rodeo committees and folks, I just don't talk a lot about animal rights. I talk more about what they can do. There's so much work we have to do to better our industries, to make sure our animals are cared for better, to make sure the world's animals are cared for better. If we can come off as the experts and the people that care about that, then again, we're going to come out ahead. And, you know, I quickly learned, I've been doing this with the Rodeo Association for 13 years, I quickly learned that I could spend all of my time worrying about the propaganda on the internet, answering a lot of critics, letters, phone calls, those types of things. And by the way, they don't contact me anymore, so I don't have to worry about it. I focus on making it better, and that makes it harder for our opponents. That's why they want us to focus on their issue. And you'll all remember that and always keep this in your mind, success is the best revenge. And I was speaking at American Horse Council a couple of years ago, and some of the opponents were actually in the room, and I knew they hated rodeo. And so, you know, I told them about this, and I said, you know, sold out rodeos, more memberships, you know, record prices, $200,000 for a bucking horse stallion. We win. And that's, in the end, that's how we win, not focusing on their issue, focusing on continuing to make our events successful with always having the animals at the top of the list. Thank you, guys.